as you noticed, there were 2 singing days in a row, which is not that like me, since usually I reserve those for Mondays, but as a Beatles fan, I had to do a tribute for George, as today is the 15th anniversary of his passing away. And what better song to do than All Things Must Pass? Now, it is absolutely crazy to me to think that it has been 15 years since George has been gone. And yes, I am wearing purple for George. Indian print is a bonus. But yeah, anyway, it does not feel like it's been 15 years, guys. I mean, those of you who are also fans, correct me if I'm wrong, but for me it does not seem like 15 years ago. I was 16 15 years ago, so, oh my god, yeah, just reflecting on that and of that dark day as a Beatle fan, wow, kind of blows my mind. I mean, where John Lennon is concerned, there was never a point in my life when I was alive at the same time John Lennon was alive. He was shot before I was ever born by 5 years, so the first Beatle passing, and so far the only one, knock on wood, that has happened in my lifetime was George. Now, at least we had a lot of warning with George. I mean, he had cancer that spread, and, I mean, we had a lot of warning. We had time to get used to the idea, but in, like, the final week or 2 of his life, like, those of you who know me know I am very, very well connected in the Beatle world, and I know people who know people, including one who knew Danny Harrison, George's son, so I was getting, like, damn near hourly updates at one point of what all was going on, which is kind of crazy. In hindsight, like, that was probably a breach of somebody's confidence, but, yeah, so it is just nuts thinking that we had all this warning, and even knowing how downhill things were going so fast, I was still shocked when it happened. And my dad broke the news to me in, like, the absolute most inconsiderate and cold way that I think he possibly could have. God help me if he's the one who breaks it to me when Paul and Ringo go, but, which will hopefully be a long time from now, because I am not looking forward to either of those 2 happening. I have been very blessed in that my 2 favorites are the 2 that are still around, but, it was a school day, or actually, no, I take that back. It was right after I had transferred out of public school into independent study, so no, it wasn't even a school day. My dad came to wake me up, though, which should have been a big red flag that I didn't even have to go to school anymore, and he was coming and waking me up at like 6 in the morning. At that point, I didn't just always wake up that early, but beside the point, so he woke me up and he said, "Hey, did you hear about George Harrison?" I was like, half awake, so I was just like, "No." He goes, "Yeah, he croaked." Dead serious. That was his wording. He left. Like, for real, you could have softened that blow a little, dude. Like, really right now, you could have worded that possibly any other way on Earth, and it would have been better than that was, but even with knowing it was coming, I was in hardcore denial that George was gone, and that what I had always known as the 3 remaining Beatles was suddenly overnight, literally overnight, down to the 2 remaining Beatles. And to this day, I still find myself screwing up on that, and by habit saying 3, even though it's been 15 years, you'd think I would have gotten a hold of that by now, but I think I wandered out into the living room long enough to see it scroll on the TV. I clicked through the channels. It was on every channel. I kind of just retreated and was like, no. Maybe if I don't acknowledge it, it's not real. Because logic. I fail at it. So I went back to my room and I turned on the radio, and of course, since I listen to classic rock stations and always have, guess what was all over the airwaves? Both stations I listened to. Was like, oh my god. And even stations I don't listen to, just turning through the dial. It was everywhere. So I turned the radio off, because I just was like, I can't handle it yet. I can't. So I got on my computer, back in the days of dial-up, And I got online and hit the landing page for MSN, and sure enough, big picture of George right on the front page, and George Harrison, ex-Beatle, whichever age he was. Sorry, I'm still scatterbrained even remembering it, but was just like, I remember having this moment of, nope, and clicked out and went back offline, and that was that. And those of you who know me know how unheard of it is for me to willingly go offline and to stay offline. Yeah, so I went back out in the front room and was in tears at this point, but was still kind of in denial at the same time as in tears. And I went and got, like, the biggest beer stein I could find in the kitchen, and I filled it with green tea, and I wandered back to my room, and I booted up The Sims. And this was in the days of Sims 1. There was only one Sims game at that point. And went to my Beatle household, because obsessions, I have them. And my Sims games, with the exception of the one that I've shown you guys here on YouTube, are usually full of celebrity Sims. So, I had built what was supposed to be a replica of the Beatles' house in the movie Help, and I had all 4 of them living together in it, which normally brought me much joy to play this game. But on this day, of all the days, my George Sim kept dying horrific deaths. And I was like, no. And I would just, like, force quit and start back up and be like, ha, I didn't save, so he's still alive. Yeah. And then it would happen again, and I'd force quit again, and I'd start back up, and it would happen again another way, and I just was beside myself. I was like, I can't even escape it in The Sims. What the fuck? I was just like, I don't even know what to do with myself right now. But I just distinctly remember I made a point of avoiding, like, all forms of media because I could not mentally or emotionally deal with it. Only celebrity death I have ever been that way over. Which is kind of ironic, because George was never even, like, my #1 top favorite Beatle, and yet I took it so hard that I literally went into denial mode over it. And stayed in denial mode for, like, 5 or 6 years after the fact of, like, I logically knew that he had passed, and yet, on some level, I was so deluded that I kept telling myself, no, he's not. No, it's not. It's a conspiracy. That he's hiding out somewhere, and he just is done dealing with the public, totally, and just doesn't want to be bothered anymore, and wants to live his life out in privacy, and yeah, he's totally still around, obviously, even though I had facts on every possible level saying otherwise, including that one contact that, yeah, it was bad. Granted, these were also years I was in a very weird mental place to begin with anyway, but yeah, George Harrison dying fucked me up big time, emotionally and mentally, just. And then phone calls started pouring in at our house, apparently from the high school I had literally just transferred out of, like, I think 3 days prior. I hadn't even been gone a week yet. And apparently, shit tons of people were going to the guidance counselor's office asking where I was and if I was okay, and asking, like, did she commit suicide over it? Or, oh my god, was she with him when he died? It's like, I'm flattered that you think I am so important in the Beatle world that you think I was somehow magically there, but no, my connections with them fall just short of that to, like, a person who knows a person. But, yeah. Regardless, I have to admit, I was kind of flattered that people actually gave a shit that much over whether or not I was okay when they heard this, because even people who did not know me by my actual name knew me as the Beatle Girl. That was literally, even people who did know my name referred to me as the Beatle Girl. And this was not just students, there were teachers who referred to me that way too. And not by my requesting it just worked out that way, but, as this was in the years before it was cool again to be a Beatle fan, I was kind of like a social outcast freak for being such an obsessive fan at that point, because, like, no one my age was a fan at that point, basically. The only ones I knew were people I knew online in other states, but, yeah, so in this day and age, it'd probably be an entirely different story because everybody's a fan to some degree now, but at that point, it was not a widespread common thing. So, like, all these people who I was convinced hated my guts and harassed me the entire time that I went to that school were suddenly showing concern. I'm like, you know, if you had shown this concern, like, even as recently as a week ago, maybe I wouldn't have transferred out of the school, but I felt so unwanted there and so harassed. I was just like, nope, I have no reason to be here, so. Yeah, it is a very weird time. And even weirder that was, like, the immediate conclusions that people were drawing. Every phone call was one of those two extremes that people were drawing their own conclusions on. And then, like, the second I'd be on the phone with them, because they were asking if they could, like, forward a call to talk to me and ask if I was okay and see how I was, like, mentally doing. It's like, I wish they had shown me that kind of concern while I was actually going there. But, it was very weird, though, because it's like, nobody at this school likes me. Why the hell? Alright, whatever. I mean, I was nice, and I talked to everyone who called, but, yeah, it was a weird thing. It was just like, everyone assumed I either killed myself or was somehow with George or his family when it happened. I was like, no and no. And the ones who had assumed the former were like, oh my god, I'm so glad you're still alive. Like, the second they heard my voice, I was like, why wouldn't I be? Okay. Yeah, but, that was probably the strangest thing that happened that day. But, holy crap, I think I went, how many days? It might have been 2 or 3 days before I went back to watching TV, listening to the radio, and getting back online, which, for me, that, again, unheard of for me, but, I told you, I was, like, in hardcore denial. I didn't want to see it, I didn't want to hear about it, because I believed if I blocked it out enough, it would make it somehow not have happened, which, obviously, it doesn't work that way. It'd be nice if it were, but it doesn't. Again, it's weird, because it's the only celebrity death that I reacted to in quite that manner. That said, it's not the only celebrity death that ever shook me to my core. I mean, just a few years ago, you guys remember how I was when Davy Jones died, and I went into a very dark, deep depression for like a month and a half afterwards, and was like legit crying daily over that shit, but didn't go into denial mode over that one. When John Entwistle died in 2002, which, oh god, next year will be 15 years since that one, because George went in 2001, that one, like, when I learned of it, I literally screamed hysterically over it, which, again, was very weird, because John was never my favorite in that band, but, actually, he was my least favorite in that band. I liked him just fine, just, if I had to put him in order, he happened to fall there, but, yeah, that. I'm trying to think if there have been... Oh, I guess David Bowie counts too, just this year. Very, very depressed over that one. I'm still not over that one. Let's be real, I'm still not freaking over that one, but... Oh, god. George, though. George threw me for a loop. And to this day, I still don't know quite why I reacted in the way that I did to that one, but yeah, and the one thing that, like, was a thorn in my side when he went, at that point in time, up until then, virtually any Beatle fan you'd encounter on the internet was a John a John fan or a Paul fan. Every once in a while, you'd run across a George girl, and I was, like, one of about 3 Ringo fans on the entire internet. But, yeah, that, and yet, magically, the second George dies, oh, everyone's favorite is suddenly George. And I figured, alright, they're vultures, and they're jumping on the bandwagon, but it'll die down, and it'll go back to normal afterwards. And then it never did. Like, it's legit been, like, nothing but John and George fans seemingly ever since that happened. I'm like, who knew that would be, like, a literal permanent shift in the fandom. I can only chalk this up to the fact that maybe his passing and the whole concert for George thing and everything, maybe this brought a lot of people's attention to George's solo works who'd never given him the time of day prior to that, and then they realized, hey, this was actually a really freaking cool guy with a lot of talent who was severely underrated. Actually, we do like him. Like, that is the only thing I can figure, because for this long after the fact, for it still to be that kind of a shift, it's the only thing that makes sense. But, yeah, that, but I remember at the time, I took, like, great offense to the fact that these people who had never given a shit about George in their life prior to that day suddenly were all over the, oh, we love George, he's my favorite now, bandwagon. It bothers me to no end when this happens in any fandom. Going back to the Monkees, this happened when Davy Jones died, and I was just like, you fucking assholes, you all made fun of him mercilessly until he died now. Oh, now you love him. Oh, I see how it is. Fucking dickbags, but, anyway, yeah, I have a lot of feels. Sorry. Yeah, actually, the same thing happened when John Entwistle died, too, come to think of it. And when Bowie died, oh, suddenly, look, everybody's suddenly a Bowie fan who had, like, never mentioned it before, and I'm like, really? And then, oh god, the ones that suddenly are like, well, I didn't know you were a Bowie fan until he died. It's like, bitch, please. He is probably the first male I was ever attracted to in that way, and was probably, like, the one that opened my eyes to the fact that I am even capable of being attracted to a guy, so I don't want to fucking hear about it. I have loved Bowie since I was, like, 14 or 15, but this video is not about Bowie. Sorry for going off on a tangent, but, as much as it bothered me at the time that everybody jumped on the George bandwagon, at this point, I feel like I do appreciate that people are finally taking notice of his talent and of his career and just how much great stuff there is there that they really did not care about prior to that point, and it sucks that it took him dying for him to get his day in the sun, basically, but I mean, I guess it's better late than never to be appreciated. I guess it's kind of like Van Gogh or any other famous artist who doesn't really get that popular until after they're gone, but, it would have been nice if he could have seen it, you know? I feel like he probably would have been very humble about it, but I think he probably would have been very flattered that so many people actually did appreciate his work. And yes, I realize this looks totally ghetto, propping it up on a box, but it's the only thing I could find, though, is the right height to prop that up there, but, anyway, that, I think, about sums up all I have to say on this topic for today, so, I'm gonna wrap it up here, I guess, because, yeah, trying to think of anything else to say that's relevant right now that won't involve spiraling into about a million other side directions in the process. Yeah, no, I'll save those for another day. So anyway, as usual, if you like this video, click the like button. If you're not already and you'd like to be, click subscribe, leave comments down below, and until next time, bye!